You're listening to the Nansanity Chronicles podcast. I'm your host, Nancy Andrade, aka Nansanity. I'm an online health, wellness, and business coach, social media strategist, group fitness instructor, and Beachbody Live master trainer. I created this podcast to help entrepreneurs like yourself learn the do's and don'ts of building a business online. Today's episode is the first in my 3-part series all about storytelling. So get ready to take some notes and let's get started. Everyone's a storyteller. You probably tell stories every single day, especially if you're on social media. But what makes a good storyteller? That's pretty subjective, and there's really no one answer. But there are some universal elements that all good storytellers have, and it really comes down to the message being conveyed and how effectively that message is being delivered. Has someone ever told you a story that seemed to go on forever and it didn't seem like it really had a point? And then when they're done, all you could think is, oh, I wish I could get those 20 minutes of my life back. That's the last feeling that you want your audience to have when you're telling a story. Whether you're telling your story on a video, on a podcast, in a blog, or live in person, there are a few things that you need to ask yourself before you actually start. The first one should be, is this story interesting? Again, that's subjective, but if your audience is filled with people that you've been trying to attract, then they're probably a lot like you. So generally, if it's something that you would find interesting if you heard it, chances are your audience will too. The second one should be, is there a lesson? A lesson can be found in almost every situation, and you want your story to have a purpose, whether it's to inform, educate, entertain, or even all three. Tell stories that have teachable moments. The third thing should be, is it relatable? Now, keep in mind, not every story is going to be relatable to every single person in your audience, but you want to think in generalities when it comes to this particular aspect. If you're telling a story about that time that you got a job as Bradley Cooper's personal assistant and the lesson is how you should handle his requests for the rare French hair care products that he likes, chances are not a whole lot of people are going to be able to relate to that story. So stick with stories that most people can relate to. Even if the details are a little obscure, the general scenario and the lesson shouldn't be. The last question you want to ask yourself before telling a story is one that probably won't apply to every story you tell, and that's, is there a follow-up? Some stories might have several parts to them. Maybe the story you're telling is an ongoing situation that you've already found some teachable moments from and you want to share them with your audience. But don't leave your audience hanging. They want to hear how the story plays out, and I promise you, no one loves a cliffhanger without a payoff. You may have heard of the 5 W's, sometimes called 5 W's and 1 H. It's a methodology that's used when it comes to fact gathering. Journalists and even law enforcement have been known to use it. Who, what, when, why, where, and how. This is also something that's used when crafting a story, and it's something that you should be using as well. But that basic information is only a small part of the process. You don't want to arbitrarily deliver the information that you've gathered using the 5 W's method. There should be a structure. There's a ton of techniques out there when it comes to storytelling structure. Believe me, I've Googled them. The standard is having a beginning, a middle, and an end. And it seems simple enough, but what do you put in there besides the 5 W information? To help with that, I created what I call the 4 C's of storytelling. This is the exact structure that I use for every story I tell, no matter how long or short it is. And the 5 W's are actually incorporated into each of these components. The first C is context. That would be the when, where, and who part of your story. You're setting the stage and giving your audience a little bit of background and an introduction into some of the key things that play a role in the actual meat of your story. The second C is conflict. That's the what and the how part of your story. This is the plot, if you will. There's got to be some kind of conflict, otherwise there's nothing to be resolved and there's no lesson to be learned. The third C is clarity. This is where why fits in. Why are you sharing this story with your audience? There should be a reason. Specifically, there should be a lesson. So did you learn something valuable from this story? The lesson or moral should be crystal clear. The fourth and final C is communicate. Plain and simple, it's delivering your message. Choose whichever platform you want, and you can choose more than one, and go ahead and just communicate that story to your audience. You never know when someone's going to connect with something that you share, and if you've learned something valuable from something that you've experienced or seen, and you choose to keep it to yourself, you're doing yourself and your audience a great disservice. Like so many things, storytelling gets easier the more often you do it. So gather the tools and information that you need and practice as often as possible. Snapchat and Instagram stories are really great places to practice these techniques. And to help you implement what you learned today, I created a storytelling checklist that you can download for free by going to nansanity.com and clicking on podcast. I hope you found this episode helpful, and I can't wait to hear your feedback. Feel free to leave me a comment below and tell me what you thought, or you can let me know what kind of topics you'd like to hear on a future episode of the Nansanity Chronicles. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so you never miss an episode. If you're looking for more valuable info, visit my website, nansanity.com, and go behind the scenes with me every single day on Snapchat at NansanityFit. Thanks so much for listening. Now go out there and be awesome.